The views and opinions expressed by this program's hosts, guests, listeners, and viewers are solely the views and opinions of the original source who expresses them. They do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of TV5 Network Incorporated, its subsidiaries and affiliates, and their respective stockholders, directors, officers, and employees.
Sounding off from Los Angeles, the undisputed king of podcasting, who's all about the good times, Mo Twister. Representing New York City, a social media monster and co-creator of the Not Bill Walton Twitter feed, Chris Savage. All the way from Sydney, Australia, a basketball media veteran and unapologetic cultural critic, Bradford Graham. Holding it down from Manila, a seasoned sportscaster with the studio skills to pay the bills, Jinno Rufino. This is Full Court Report.
Hey, it's the Full Court Report. We are four guys in four cities all around the world talking about NBA basketball and sports in general. My name is Mom in Los Angeles. It's Chris in New York. We have Brad in Sydney, Australia, and Jinno Rufino right there in studio in Manila, Philippines. Big weekend in sports. And Jinno, I'm going to go ahead and kind of throw this out to you. You have first quarter duties. I'm sure we're going to lead off with a little bit of streak-breaking talk. What do you got, my friend?
They've gone streaking! All right.
The streak is over!
All right. Well, over the weekend, the Dubs minus Clay and Barnes, and we touched on this in the last episode, went to double overtime against the Celtics and escaped Beantown with a win. Then, the very next day, they gave it away. The Bucks, they went against Milwaukee and they looked a little flat and tired. Clay was back, but he didn't look 100%. But give credit to the Bucks as they capitalized on it and pulled away for the 108-95 win. Greg Monroe, who we all said didn't fit with the Bucks, had a nice game with 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists. The Bucks, by the way, is the same franchise that ended the 71-72 Lakers streak of 33 wins in a row. I know it means nothing, but it's just nice to say. It's coincidence.
Drives me crazy.
Coincidence or not. So, gentlemen. Yeah. Finally, we can go back to business and stop thinking about the streak and stop and start, I guess, a new life, or a new podcast episode, after the Dubs streak. And I don't know, maybe just maybe, Mo will be willing for us to not talk about the Dubs in every single episode after this.
Just because of that, just because I hear all of this celebration going on between you and Chris here, I'm going to talk about the Dubs in my quarter. There you go.
Well, you know what? It's interesting, Mo. It's interesting, Mo, that Jinno has to recap the loss. You recapped all these wins, and then when you finally lose, you run away from it. You skirt the responsibility.
It's interesting to me that we have a team here that's as an historical run, and you're the only one who's happy that they don't do well. That's kind of the interesting thing. But yeah, I don't know, Jinno, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's go around the room. We've already started a discussion of this. So let's go around the room a little bit and discuss how great this achievement was. I mean, 24 wins in a row to start up a season is still fantastic. And what it means for the rest of the season. What are your expectations from the Dubs and I guess their players involved as well the rest of the way? Let's start with Mo. I know you have a lot to say about this, so let's start with you.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was reading an article. Some of the players said it was a relief to get a loss out of the way, just because there's so much attention coming along with it. I think that's just a way of saying that it's not a big deal, but of course this was a big deal for them. But it's not like they don't have a huge injury there. They're gonna get their guys back, and I think they set their sights on other things that they can achieve within the regular season, and of course a championship run. It would have been nice to see a record broken, one that a lot of people thought could never be broken, but they got close, and well, whatever, try again in another time. I think they're going to be fine.
All right. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I joke around hating the run, it was a strong run. I really thought much of this team, watching what they did, some of the blowouts that they had, some of the ways they could just fill in the points, 24-1 or 24 in a row on paper looks like the best of the modern era. You can compare it to a couple, though. I mean, their strength of schedule wasn't the greatest, but I can't take anything away for the most part of how great that run was and the way they performed during it. Awesome run.
Brad, how about you?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Greg Monroe, of all people, was the one who beat up on their small ball. I mean, I don't think I've seen that one coming I thought it was fascinating that they exhausted themselves to a degree that I hadn't seen from this Warriors team when they did play in Boston. And that game had real electricity about it. The fans in Boston were terrific. The stadium was packed watching Steph Curry warm up. Everything about this weekend seemed to have this real sort of culmination about it. But then for them to go into Milwaukee, that was a real trap game for them. And it's almost like we should have seen it coming. The Greek Freak played very well. Everyone in Milwaukee sort of seemed to sort of play up to the standard we expected of them heading into this season. But my real takeaway from the weekend was how poorly Klay Thompson took the loss and said that obviously this wasn't about Milwaukee beating them, but about them not being able to hit shots and, la. And I just thought, you know what, man, just accept it, man. You got beaten by a team on the day. This stuff happens. You've got, another 50-odd games to still, reach that, coveted 72 mark. Man, it was fascinating from a fan standpoint. And I just want to see if they go streaking again or if this is going to start to sort of be a little test for them. And I guess how they bounce back is going to show real character.
Right.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, I mean, Klay, that's a poor job out of him. He's got to stop crying, maybe up his game a little bit this year, too, before he does that. But, we can't compare certain things like the Bucks stopped the 72-73 Lakers streak, and that's irrelevant. So I'm going to throw something that, because people want to compare the Bulls 72-10, which is kind of irrelevant anyway, but fine. 72-10 Bulls lost to one last place team all season. The Warriors have already done that in 25 games. So there's your little comparison. Just want to throw that out there.
Well, Brad, you mentioned something. I want to point this out.
Means nothing. Yes.
No, it does.
I know.
They're as good as him. It means nothing.
It means nothing. It's just fun to talk about and see the reaction from people. But Brad, you touched base on something that I wanted to point out here: the small ball of the Dubs, and we saw, I guess, the Bucks are one of the biggest teams in the NBA today. They've got a lot of size in different positions.
They've got length, man.
Yeah.
They've got real length.
So
60.
I mean,
every position is so versatile, it's scary.
But what do you think that was? Was it really the size of the Bucks that posed a problem for the small ball of the Dubs? I mean, what was that deciding factor for you in terms of...
I think it was post-up play. Like Monroe just played out of his mind. It was one of those. He just took advantage of the lack of size that they had on the floor. It was just fascinating to watch him go to work in that way, and it sort of reminds you that this Warriors team, as great as they are from outside, are still going to be vulnerable on the inside. And so, take note, Andre Drummond, take note, Tim Duncan, take note, every sort of superior Boogie Cousins, every big man. And, even Kevin Love has the capacity, I think, to sort of now exploit them if he wants to go to his post-up game. This Warriors team still looks mighty tough and mighty impressive, but Milwaukee, I don't know, maybe it was their one highlight of this year. Maybe they'll go down as being able to say, tell their grandkids, hey, we stopped the Warriors streak. But I don't know, Milwaukee really has to keep this momentum going now in order to sort of, I guess, have more respect, because it's not like Golden State's season is over by any stretch.
Right, and Golden State also adjusts, I think, better than any other team does. So, if you're saying that, take note, these guys, that this is how you beat them. I mean, again, how much of it was they were exhausted from the night before, the second game of a back-to-back on the road? How much of it is, they didn't play their best small ball, but they're not going to adjust? I mean, this is the defending champions. They got here for a reason. It's not like the Milwaukee Bucks was their kryptonite or anything. They just played maybe an off game on a very tired.
Yeah, the size and the athletic
and then
ability.
to think that they're not going to adjust if in case it was the dynamic of the Bucks that beat them is crazy, because this is a team that adjusts on the fly. They have no coach and they still adjust.
They didn't shoot well, and I think that has to be remembered. Like if they were hot from the outside, this obviously isn't the game. And again, we talked about this earlier. They were also exhausted from the double overtime game in Boston that. Who knows what would have played out had they'd all been sort of, I guess,
right. They're missing essentially 40% of the starting lineup. Okay, Klay was back, but he was only 70% effective. His health was the night prior. They don't have Harrison Barnes. Not to do too much defending, but I mean, your oh my god in the background sounds like, oh my god, no, this is crazy talk. What's crazy talk to me is to say that this is their crypt.
Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
This is their kryptonite? The Milwaukee Bucks? Are you serious?
Yeah, but we're talking about their injuries? Come on, man. I do
No,
find it
I'm
interesting.
saying no. I'm not talking about their injury. I'm talking about if you're going to say that one loss, all of a sudden, hey, everybody, take note. This is their weakness, is the Achilles heel. I'm like, oh my, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 reasons why they may have lost that game.
No,
and it has nothing to do with them being
more than anything is. I was just going to say, my point more than anything is that Milwaukee is so custom built that they just have everything you would probably want from a team to be able to take on a team like Golden State, in that they've got big guards, they've got flexibility at every position, they've got decent players that can score off the bench, and they did just catch them on an off night. I think it was that combination that undone the Warriors. I don't think it was like, as Klay Thompson said, "Oh, they didn't beat us, we beat ourselves." I think you just have to give credit to. I think you just have to give credit to Milwaukee. That the fact is they are a team that I think is really dangerous for a lot of teams in the NBA, and you can't sort of sleep on the Bucks. And they haven't been consistent, but that doesn't mean they're not a very good team when they are all firing on all cylinders.
Sure.
Right. Any team that has that differential from a team like the Warriors, I mean, the Bucks can be a good team down the road. It has to be an off night from that top team a little bit, but there was other combinations. Now, I find something interesting. I'm wondering, I think Steve Kerr could be comfortable coming back now when he's ready, because my question is, during the streak is, if they were still streaking and he's ready to come back, does he come back to mess it up? He could potentially jinx it. We don't have to worry about that now. Steve Kerr, you can come back whenever you're ready, not worry about jinxing your team, and then you can start resting your players and really start messing up their chance to get to 72 wins. Nice job, Steve. Come back.
Yeah, I think now they can at least focus on maybe going after the championship and getting themselves ready for the playoffs instead of just keeping the streak alive. Now, let's move on from that, and let's go to something else that concerns the Warriors. Over the weekend, Jason Kidd something about Steph Curry also. He said that Steph is this generation's Jordan. We all wanted to be like Mike, and children today will grow up seeing Steph. And then to piggyback off of that, Steph Curry also said that, why else would I be playing? You want to be the best you can be, and if the best you can be is better than him, then why not? That's good motivation. So what are your thoughts about this? I know he's not the style of MJ, but I guess his impact on the basketball court, and maybe even in a marketing standpoint, and how big Steph has become for the NBA and the game of basketball. So let's go around. Go ahead.
Jason Kidd saying it means nothing, but I do like what Steph said. He said, why else would I play basketball if I don't want to be the best, especially someone at that level? That's a great thing to say. I don't think it was cocky in any way to put it out there. People can construe it as that way, but Steph, I could tell that he didn't say it in a cocky way. I like what he said. That's a great way to present yourself. Good job, Steph.
All right. About Brad.
Yeah, I was just going to say then, look, unless Steph Curry builds some sort of institution like the Air Jordan, sneaker line, I just don't see him having the cultural impact. Jordan did things, the original Dream Team, obviously the 6 championships. Like, there's so much that Mike brought to the globalization of basketball that Steph just doesn't seem like he's going to be able to do in any real tangible way. He's connected with kids. Obviously, he's a big fan favorite. But part of that, I really do feel like is tied in with the streak and tied in with the fact that he's likable and has like an Iverson level of cultishness to him. But, to sort of put Steph in a cultural context in the conversation with Mike, I think is a little premature. So I'm not ready to go there yet. All right. But he's making it today.
Mo, let's end the quarter with
I just think maybe what Kidd was referencing was not like the brand that Michael Jordan is, but the offensive season that we're seeing Steph have and how dominant he's been. I mean, when us growing up, I don't remember Michael Jordan as a brand or this and that. I just remembered him as just an offensive force, and I think that's what a lot of young people and whether it be a casual fan or a hardcore fan is seeing in Steph Curry is that okay, this guy is having the greatest greatest offensive season of all time.
All right.
That's Michael Jordan-esque.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. That brings us to the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
Streak's over!
Right. Streak's over!
All right, let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we have more of the Full Court Report. Do not go away.
He has made viewers laugh with his funny antics and awesome style in comedy. He has also been in quite a few headlines himself. Well, funny man Arnel Ignacio loves good times too. Curious if he has funny secrets he'd like to spill? Then head on to www.tv5.com.ph/originals and watch Good Times with Mo. Thursday, 9 p.m. on Digital 5. Call us on our hotline, also on Viber and Skype.
It's the Full Court Report here We are back for quarter number 2, and we will head over to Sydney, Australia, pass it over to Brad. Brad, you got 12 minutes, and your quarter starts now, buddy. What do you got?
Thanks, Mo. Look, from what I've seen TV-wise, Fargo, Mr. Robot, The Nick, you know what? They're all better than the competition, but just being better than the competition doesn't automatically mean you're going to get the fanfare you deserve. In other words, performance and popularity aren't necessarily always bedfellows, and I think that's always true in the NBA. This season, we've seen a range of players overachieve, but yet for one reason or another, it's probably mostly due to Golden State. A few of these standouts, have kind of gone a little underappreciated, just like, a lot of great TV shows are getting underappreciated right now just because the competition's so thick. Sometimes it's the channel, that determines the effectiveness and the reach. So now that the streak is over, and for the record, I don't think streaks should carry over from season to season. I think each streak should be self-contained. But now that the streak is done, who should be the first player to dominate conversation?
We spoke about it before, especially when he's coming off a foot injury and he's getting back to the form. It's Kevin Durant. It's Kevin Durant that we have to put this guy up in highlights. He missed most of last season. OKC's been looking very strong lately, and he looks like the Kevin Durant of old. How can it not be him? It's got to be KD. Let's give him all the respect he deserves, man.
I agree. I think Kevin Durant is not getting a lot of credit for the season that he's having. I think a lot of the, oh my God, he's back from injury, wow, look at him play, is all going to Paul George. But when you look at the numbers, Kevin Durant's numbers are better than Paul George, at least in my opinion. Kevin Durant's shooting 53% from the field, 53. I think in his MVP season, he shot 50.
Mo, to put it in context, his shooting splits are actually 53, 45, and 90. And Steph shooting 52, 46, and 90. So, he's right there with Steph.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's why I think Durant should get more praise for what he's doing this season coming off the big injury. He's averaging 27 points a game. He's got the 8 boards. He's got a steal. He's over a steal and a block per game. He's got the 4 assists. The three-pointers are all still there. So he's about as elite as he's ever been. But yet,
super efficient,
of course, just does not get the recognition.
So is some of the problem then not so much Golden State, but the fact that Westbrook has taken away some of the shine that should be given to KD? Is efficiency part of the problem here? Or is he just not electric enough? Where do you see the problem essentially lying with why Durant isn't getting more love?
Well, do you think maybe because Kevin has a little bit of problem with the media, as we've brought up several times here already this season? Do you think maybe, okay, fine, you want to be a dick to us? We're not going to be talking about you in the way we used to.
Right. It's a combination of Golden State. It was a combination of Golden State streak, the new love affair with Steph, and people loving his game. It's like almost old hat about Kevin Durant. We expect him to be this great, even though he's coming off an injury. And then Russell Westbrook, people saying, "Oh my goodness, this guy's outright is so great too." It was like we easily forgot that Kevin Durant's a former MVP and just a lights out player. So all those things contributed, and it's great to have him back at the top echelon.
And where do you want the conversation to go from here? Do you think it should be that Kevin Durant is mentioned, is followed, is talked about, is quoted enough? Or do you think this, essentially this shutout by the media is going to continue? Is this a coincidence, or is this an actual truism? Where do we sort of stand? How do we feel about Durant and what's going on?
I think if Durant continues to be that way to the media, I think it's going to continue to be this way. In terms of how open the media is to talking about him or writing about him or all that kind of stuff. But I assumed that one of you guys would have said LeBron James in terms of who else would we be discussing now that the streak is over. And I think LeBron is still, in my opinion, the most dominant, maybe not the best. I think maybe that Steph has kind of getting some of those votes, but I think LeBron is still the most dominant guy. If he's not playing, the Cavs don't have a chance in doing anything. So I definitely think LeBron has to be in the same conversation as well.
Yeah. Perhaps what's going on here, it's just being spread around a little bit, because we're seeing more and more superstars being born. As say in the past few seasons, Kawhi Leonard should very much be worthy of a lot of fanfare as well, as we've seen Westbrook emerge into superstardom last year. James Harden is still there, though the team's struggling a little bit. LeBron, as you said, Paul George, Anthony Davis is always kind of in the conversation of best player in the league. So now that we're spreading out the love to deserving candidates, we're going to have to see less and less of that fanfare for 1, 2, or 3 guys.
You hear that, Brad? Kawhi Leonard, superstar. He is a superstar.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, what about the Kyle Lowry of the West, Mr. Eric Bledsoe? He's put up 22.3. He's put up 4.
About LeBron. The thing about LeBron
Zero.
is he's got some attention. He's got some attention with what's going on in Cleveland, kind of the things that aren't gelling together. So he's at least got some attention. Kevin Durant has got next to nothing other than early on about his walk here and maybe issues with the media, this comments with Kobe Bryant, but not his game on the court. That's a little ridiculous. I mean, especially his performance level. He needs that attention. He's the number one guy in my book who needs it.
Sure.
So do you think he's well and done with the injury then? Do you think it's now just solely about on-court performance and his interactions with the media? I mean, can we put this whole foot thing behind us? Are we done with that? Or is this going to be, always in the back of our minds, I think you said, Chris, before we started the show?
Yeah, it'll be back in our minds always, but we're almost past it. We're almost through it. That's why, I'm glad it's only in the back of our minds now. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're past it now.
I think the next big story, and this is, I feel 100% about this. As soon as Kyrie Irving gets back in a week's time, is kind of some of the projections. It's going to be all Cleveland talk for the next probably month, just to see the three of those big guys kind of play together and see how they fare. So I think the focus has shifted from the Warriors. We're going to get into a couple of days of what are we going to talk about, and then boom, Kyrie Irving comes back next week, and it's going to be all Cavaliers.
You know who hasn't got a lot of attention? Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, so who else, I mean, do we feel is not getting enough love? I mean, how do we feel about Isaiah Thomas in Boston and Reggie Jackson in Detroit and the, Utah duo of Hayward and Favors, Kemba Walker in Charlotte, Millsap in Atlanta? Like, who else is sort of not getting the love that you guys want to see get more attention? Who's not getting their due credit?
Probably two guys off the top of my mind would be Eric Bledsoe in Phoenix and then Paul Millsap in Atlanta as maybe two guys I don't see getting a lot of attention that should likely deserve it at this point, or at least in this part of the season. Millsap has played great. Bledsoe's been a monster. So those are probably my two guys that I think should get a little bit more fanfare. Chris, you were saying?
Yeah, no. It's funny that you mentioned that the backcourt of the Suns definitely, but the playing up in the Pacific Northwest, the backcourt of the Blazers too. I think they should be. Colum and Lillard. They should be getting a lot of attention too. And then that rookie in New York, I think his name is Kristaps Porzingis. He's not getting a lot of attention either. So can we give him a little more attention?
He's not getting any attention. Zero attention for Kristaps.
Nothing. Let's give him some.
But you know what? I think all those players that you guys just mentioned. I mean, all of them are good players. They're all stars to a caliber type players. But I don't think those guys are household names in terms for the casual fan. I mean, if you're talking about the casual fan, and some of these media outlets are talking to these casual fans, there's really only, in my opinion, I guess the way I see it this year unfolding is that there's going to be 4 teams, and the players within those teams and in 4 different quarters of the NBA season are going to be talked about. Obviously, the first quarter of the season was about the Dubs and their streak. Then we're going to see the second half, or the second quarter, will be about the Cavs, because with Kyrie coming back and Shumpert to some extent. And then after that, after the All-Star break, I do believe that the Thunder are going to be talked about, and then finally the Spurs in the final half, in the final quarter of the NBA regular season.
There you go. You don't have to watch the NBA. You just got to listen to Jinno.
Spurs, when they start winning in the playoffs, they're talked about then every year. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, Blake Griffin's getting no love out in Los Angeles. He got suspended, flagrant foul. He's doing some craziness out there. We thought Blake might be an MVP consideration this year. No love. I mean, what's the story? I mean, is it the fact that there's no highlights coming from some of these players? Like, what's preventing these guys from essentially becoming, I guess, a more consistent part of the conversation, not only between the casual fans, but between us as NBA observers?
By the way, has Blake Griffin become the new guy that if he breathes on someone the wrong way, they're going to tee him up? Like also Rasheed Wallace type of thing. If he looks at someone the wrong way, he's teed up. But you're right, actually, thinking about it. Blake Griffin hasn't got the attention he's deserved either. I don't get that one. He plays in LA, but I guess maybe that's the Warriors effect too. I do want to see more
Kobe's fault.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. The Kobe is overshadowing a lot of this too. The Kobe Bryant effect. Wow, California's getting all clogged up there.
Then again,
I don't know if the Clippers are just as likable as. I mean, they were never really historically likable, obviously, but these past few years, I mean, they've kind of been able to flip the script on how people view them, and they became a respectable team. And I think they're just not as likable as people are more happy to see them lose than see them win. And I don't know if it's the personnel, maybe that whole off-season kind of issue that they had to turn people off.
It's the rebranding. No one can swallow the fact that this team just looks ugly, and then of course is annoying on top of it.
You love rebranding. You love that,
man. It's the worst in sports. I'm sorry. Like, what else can I say? Like,
it's It's horrible.
It's
horrible.
yeah, it's atrocious. But I was just gonna. The point is, like DeAndre Jordan's out there putting down monster highlights game after game after game, and I thought, fans, the casual fans especially, love the dunks, love the highlights, love the big threes, game winners, etc. And yet Blake doesn't seem to be the highlights machine that he once was. And I don't know. I wonder if that's got anything to do with the fact that he's not getting as much attention, from the highlight clips, and fans aren't talking about him as much because he's kind of gone away from being Sean Kemp and more towards Karl Malone. And that's just not as sexy as what the average person wants to see from their NBA superstars.
And he makes those crappy commercials too. He can do without those. This week, I'm good with those.
You don't drive a Kia? It doesn't make you want to drive a Kia? What's going on, man? I got 3 parked in the driveway just because I watched Blake on TV. Yeah. All right, guys. I mean, look, there's a lot of guys that aren't getting enough attention. Unfortunately for Kevin Durant, maybe playing in a small market is actually coming back to bite him this season, given the fact that we're seeing Golden State just hog all the headlines. But for a guy putting up numbers like doing, it's just one of those things that I don't know. It's the Spurs thing too, isn't it? I mean, those guys don't mind if they don't get any love because they know they're going to be there at the business end. And, maybe it is just about taking care of business in December.
Well, the great thing about Durant is Mo thinks he'll be on Golden State next year, so he'll get all the attention in the world when he does that. So he'll be fine.
All right.
Yeah. Wow.
All right, Brad. Thanks for the second quarter there. We will go to break. I think we're kind of running out of time here in the second, so let's take it a break. When we come back, we have our halftime show, which I think will be interesting because we got Star Wars coming up in the next couple of days. So I think we're going to try to make this a movie-related halftime show. So don't go away. You're listening to the Full Court Report. Back after this.
A Sports5.ph original web show.
My name is Dominic Uy, and this is my buddy Kevin Limhoco.
We are going to be testing products to their nth degree, to their limits.
Cars.
How many car makers are not equipped with power steering?
Gadgets.
You feel the value of that watch.
And everything in between.
I don't like to pamper myself except in a restaurant.
This is the web show for the modern man.
Oh, let's go!
Nth degree. Catch it exclusively on Sports5.ph.
All right, guys, welcome to halftime of the Full Court Report. This is where we dip our toes in the waters of pop culture. And today's topic, we're going to discuss our favorite fictional villains. Now, I mean, that's a huge net to cast. Obviously, villains, litter every sort of pop culture source, whether that be comic books, movies, television, you name it. Antagonists are where it's at today. So for me, I'm going to offer up my first. I'm going to break the ice by saying the Cormac McCarthy novel, No Country for Old Men, and the antagonist of Anton Sugar, played by Javier Bardem in the movie version by the Coen brothers. Man, everything about that character just oozed villainary to me. He was slimy. He was masterfully done. The performance was off the charts.
Creepy.
Man? Yeah,
badass weapon.
About it. Oh man, I mean the cow prod, the way he just would, get people to sort of stand back, and he was so unsuspecting. And you know what? Even visually, like that haircut, man. What the hell was up with that haircut?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a motel scene. Motel scene was so creepy, man. That's a great scene.
Oh man. Yep, he takes out guys with sniper rifles. He has this really strict code of conduct. He lets no debt go unpaid. Everything about him was just, awful in the best possible way. So Anton Sugar, man, you got my vote, favorite villain. So, Chris, how about yourself, man? Who do you love for all the wrong reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're playing off Star Wars. So I'm not going to use a Star Wars villain for my choice, but really quickly, if I had to pick a Star Wars villain that would be my number one choice, it would be the great mysterious bounty hunter, Boba Fett. Of course, in episodes 5 and 6, not the crap in in episode 2 and 3. And I'm even wearing my Boba Fett Back to the Future crossover shirt today, Mandalorian. So it would be Boba Fett if I had to choose a Star Wars character, but just shifting off that because we're playing off Star Wars. For me, it's a cool, collective German terrorist who took over the Nakatomi Plaza building. It's Hans Gruber from Die Hard going head-to-head in a cat and mouse game with the great John McClane, culminating him falling off the roof, trying to pull Holly McClane down. But just the way Hans Gruber was, cool, calm, collective, and knew what he wanted to do and had an agenda, and he wasn't just
isn't that the key? Isn't that the key to a great villain, that you need somebody to actually, promote the protagonist to, perform heroic acts. I mean, heroes are usually only as good as the guy they're combating. And, if you can't bring a city or, in this instance, I guess a whole building, to its knees, then what good is it? Yeah, man. Good choice. Hans Gruber, man. You know what? Just like James Harden, he rocks the beard.
That's right.
Mo,
all right, let me go next. I'm gonna go pick one one current and then kind of one all time, because all time growing up, sometimes you're 6, 7 years old, anything scares you to death. I mean, Freddy Krueger scared the hell out of me. Chucky from Child's Play scared the hell out of me. You watch it now, it's stupid. But if I'm gonna go with best villain of all time, I'd probably pick the witch from The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch of the West. With the green face and that kind of nasty looking. I mean, she scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. I mean, even though it's The Wizard of Oz, it's a great movie, but boy, was she just awful. But I think the modern villain that many people have gotten around to hating, and that's probably kind of the gauge I use. Which one do I hate the most? I fear would be King Joffrey Baratheon in the Game of Thrones. Such a hateable guy.
What a weasel.
Yeah.
Boy, so effective in his ability to be such a hateable person. The Ramsey kid, the new one, Ramsey Bolton is just as bad. But boy, Joffrey Baratheon has to be the kind of worst villain or the best villain in this case that I've come across in a really long time. Jinno, take it home. What do you got?
Well, if I can't choose Darth Vader or Boba Fett or anybody from Star Wars, I have to choose somebody that I guess his character has been played by so many different people. I'm talking about the Joker of Batman, and he's, with all due respect to Jack Nicholson, who played him during the Michael Keaton era.
What do you mean due respect? Jack Nicholson just played himself.
There's nothing wrong with that.
True. And then also respect to Mark Hamill, aka Luke Skywalker, who played the voice of the Joker in the cartoon.
Good pull.
The animated series,
the animated one. I have to go with the most recent one is Heath Ledger's what do you call this Joker, and I think this was chilling. Sorry.
Shout out to the Australians, man. They're everywhere.
He really this one was he really gave it a different type of. This is when I really felt the Joker being a complete psycho when Heath Ledger was able to do it, and the way it was fantastic. The way he just looked really crazy, like legitimately crazy with the lips or the paint on his lips and the white face. And I mean, to me he was the most scary Joker that I've ever seen. More than Jack, more than Mark Hamill, or more than the other dozens of Jokers that were out there.
Cesar Romero.
So this was Heath Ledger, and maybe the fact that he passed away playing this role had something to do with it. So I'm not sure, but
shortly after. But yeah, it was right at the height of his fame when, of course, he passed, and then, of course, it threw Chris Nolan into a spin. And maybe Joker was going to be reprised for the third movie, but that just never happened because of the tragic death of Heath. But just to finish off here, man. I guess that's the end of halftime. But yeah, it's all about how menacing you can be, and I guess no one was as menacing as the Joker in that second film. Yeah. So I guess in light of the new Star Wars film about to drop, we just wanted to pay a little ode to our favorite movie and fictional villains. So thanks a lot, and I guess we'll be back with quarter number 3 just after this.
He has made viewers laugh with his funny antics and awesome style in comedy. He has also been in quite a few headlines himself. Well, funny man Arnel Ignacio loves good times too. Curious if he has funny secrets he'd like to spill? Then head on to www.tv5.com.ph/originals and watch Good Times with Mo. Thursday, 9 p.m. on Digital 5. Call us on our hotline, also on Viber and Skype.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is the second half of our show here. We are going to head over to Chris, who is in New York City. He'll take third quarter duties now. So, Chris, let me stop the music here, because since we're going to New York with you, and in lieu of the 100th birthday last year of Mr. Sinatra?
100th birthday on the 12th.
100th birthday of Frank Sinatra yesterday. My father's birthday also. My late father passed away recently. His birthday was on the December 12th as well. So that's kind of cool that I didn't know that they shared the same birthday. So good on you guys, both of you gentlemen. Here we go. Chris, you are taking over the third quarter.
Start spreading the news.
Yeah.
I'm leaving
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Thanks for that lead in, and it'll tie into this quarter as well. So that's great. So last quarter we spoke about players who've been playing well but haven't received the proper attention due to the Warriors streak, the Kobe Bryant retirement, what have you, a bunch of things. I wanted to take this quarter to discuss players who haven't been playing well and there's no scrutiny on them, or at least little scrutiny on them because of everything else is going on. So the big player that I want to speak about first is Carmelo Anthony. Here's a guy who is expected to be the number one player on his team. He's back from last year's injuries. He's in New York, and he's supposed to bring this team to a consistent playoff level because of his superstar status. This is a guy who's expected to be among the top in the league. And the funny thing is, he's not even overshadowed by just the Warriors streak. He's overshadowed by his own teammate, Kristaps Porzingis, and who's getting all the attention. I don't know if that's making Carmelo a little jealous too, like he did with a little Jeremy Lin supposedly.
Melo loves this. Come on, man. Melo loves this. He loves hearing about how much his teammates are more popular than he is. That's what he lives for.
It's strange. But Carmelo Anthony is not having a good year. I mean, I don't care if he's scoring 21.8 points a game. That's, for him, that's not even a lot. But he's doing it at 41% shooting. I think his efficiency is around 40 PER. I mean, Kawhi Leonard has passed him as a better number 3. So I want to ask this to you guys. Is Carmelo Anthony deserving of getting the superstar status that he's been getting year after year, being mentioned so often? And at this stage of his career, is he someone capable of bringing the Knicks to at least a playoff conversation year after year, or is he just a stats compiler at this point?
Man, what the funny thing is that once upon a time, we would have a LeBron, Carmelo, mention them both in the same conversation and not even break a sweat. I mean, they entered the league, basically neck and neck. Many argue that Melo should have been Rookie of the Year, and I think that's justified. But since then, over the course of the last 12 years, we've seen their careers diverge down two completely different paths. Melo has all the tools in the world to be a generational great. And for one reason or another, whether it's, him just gunning for his own stats, not having the personnel around him, him obviously wanting a bigger market because Denver wasn't, his ideal situation in terms of a marketability and money standpoint. He just hasn't taken full advantage of everything I think New York has handed to him. This was a real chance for him when he joined the team 2010. And him and Amari Stoudemire was supposed to revolutionize New York basketball. And instead, what we've seen from Melo is complaint after excuse. And it just seems to me like, injuries aside, when he's been healthy, he's never really put together the sort of campaign, the sort of showing that justifies his popularity, because he's still as popular as ever. And I still think, being attached to the Jordan brand and obviously, being in New York City and being the face of that franchise is going to carry him a long way. But man, he just feels like one of those guys from the 80s that just, Alex English, Adrian Dantley, these guys that just put up insane numbers, incredibly gifted scorers, awesome small forwards, but ultimately just aren't going to get you to the conference finals and then to the stage that is, playing in June. So, oh man, Carmelo Anthony, I just feel like we're going to look back on his career and say he didn't have the excuses that Grant Hill and Penny and T-Mac had, which was they were derailed by injuries, whereas he, had every opportunity to succeed and just didn't quite know how to grab the bull by its horns, which he should have done when he should have left New York 2 years ago. And just a situation
what do we expect though from Carmelo and the Knicks? I tend to ask this question a lot when we kind of put a player and a team on blast. I always ask, what did we expect from him this year? Were we expecting a playoff team out of the Knicks? I remember saying early on in a few episodes they were doing rather well. I said, this team's not going to make the playoffs. So aside from 21-7 and, fine, the 41% from the field is awful, but what did we hope to see from Carmelo this year? Isn't this kind of what they are, what they're predicted to be? They are not as bad as they were last year because they've been able to retool a little bit and of course score Kristaps. But aside from that, what are we supposed to get from him?
But it's more than the expectations. This is the guy who's supposed to be regarded at this high level, and there you have players regardless of the supporting cast. Brad brought up the supporting cast, but you have all-star level players, superstar level players, regardless of the supporting cast, find a way to get in the playoff conversation at least. If not, clearly every year get in the playoffs. He's not done that. So what do we expect? What do we expect the last couple of years? Why can't he go to that level? And so if he can't, why do we continue to call him a superstar and give him this much attention? It can't be New York alone. So, I mean, we should expect exactly what we've seen the last couple of years based on track record.
Mo, I think the point is that he's one of 12 Olympians, and he's done that repeatedly. Like, he's always been considered one of the most talented
can we say
players in
then? So
basketball.
can we say then? Okay, we had a superstar. We experienced it. We enjoyed it, but he's clearly on decline. And the superstar status, this might be its last year. Maybe it's already gone in the first quarter of the year. That, listen, Carmelo is no longer the player that he was, and he'll never be the player that he used to be because he's already in his decline. It's a little earlier than some of his other peers, but it is what it is. Carmelo will never be back to the way he how he excelled in past few years.
And look at the position that he's in the small forward position. It's actually one of the most stacked positions in the NBA. Recently, right? You have LeBron James, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, it's
and some guy called Kevin Durant.
Sorry, Kevin Durant.
See, we overshadowed him again.
Good one. And maybe that's one of the reasons why too. I mean, in just a small forward position, not even including the point guards, he already is not a top 4 player in that position. So maybe that's one of the things
for so long he was the silver medalist.
Yes.
Like, for so long he was considered. Then Durant showed up, then Paul George showed up, now Kawhi Leonard showed up, and all of them have kind of leapfrogged him. But that doesn't mean that Melo doesn't have it in him. It seems like there's just a lack of will. And he doesn't. It's not like he's hungry to go out there and grab 10 rebounds. It's not like he's setting up teammates for easy scores. All he seems to be interested in is getting his own points, and feels like that's the only way he can be productive.
And that's what the criticism is. Like, obviously, he got into a little bit of a spat with Charles Barkley the other day because Charles Barkley was kind of bringing up the fact that he needs just to be a better leader, and Carmelo kind of snapped back at him. You know, I compare Carmelo to Chris Paul, guys who stormed out of college as fantastic players, superstars in their individual right, but have now hit a steep decline. Right, and he's no longer a superstar, and maybe we gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was injured last year. Okay, let's label him superstar as we do with Chris Paul, but as we've seen with both of those players this year, that they're no longer the elite contributors that they used to be, and now the fact that they haven't won just kind of highlights our criticism from them. Okay, you guys used to be great, you never did anything with it, both you, Paul and Anthony, you haven't done anything with it, and now you're going to pay for it as we've seen you starting to decline.
Hey, Mo, I got to ask you, a couple episodes ago, we spoke about in our overtime that you mentioned Chris Paul as the most overrated player in the league. You don't think Carmelo Anthony is more overrated than Chris Paul?
No, and I just said I liken both of them to they strike me as the same kind of player right now, has been superstars. The only reason why I think Carmelo is not as much of a disaster as Chris Paul is because Chris Paul is supposed to succeed. It goes back to my very first statement. What do we expect from Carmelo Anthony? Okay, we expect superstar, maybe statistics. He's not doing that, but we didn't really expect his team to contend. The Clippers are supposed to be a title contender, and that is why I think he's a little bit more overrated. But they're 1-1A to me. Paul and Anthony, just they're I hate to say it, has-beens. They're in a decline right now, and we're never going to see them back to the way they used to be, kind of like a Derrick Rose. But Derrick Rose doesn't have the track record or the established kind of history that these two guys have.
But Derrick Rose and Dwight Howard have both been really hurt, and it's like they both have excuses where it seems like Chris Paul and Melo have both been given the perfect.
Absolutely. That's why I'd never say those two guys are overrated. What I'm saying is we'll never see their prime again. Those days are done.
Well, fair enough. Let's shift over to a couple other players who haven't been playing up to standards. I just want to go around here and get your guys maybe one or two picks of players who just have been a little questionable this year or haven't been playing what you expected them to be. And I'll throw a couple names out there who I'm just thinking off the top of my head is Luol Deng. You have LaMarcus Aldridge, of course, Zach Randolph, Mike Conley to a degree, Goran Dragic definitely. And I mean, I know we expected a decline from Joe Johnson, but I mean, he's really fallen off. I mean, those names, would you guys jump on for, some of the more disappointing players from production or any other names that you want to throw out there? Brad, I'll start with you.
Yeah, man. Again, I think I talked about this a couple episodes ago, but I really just haven't seen what I was expecting from John Wall this year. I thought that the Wizards were going to be, a top 4 team in the East. I thought he was going to take another step. I actually thought that he might even challenge for a national team spot. I thought he was going to be a lock for All-Star. Now I'm, in a position where there's going to be even more pressure on Wall. So I guess over the next 2 weeks with Beal being out, we'll find out really what he's got in the tank for this year. But he has to figure some stuff out in Washington. Aldridge is another guy that you mentioned that I guess is disappointed thus far. But, Wall doesn't live in that same system where he's got his teammates who can cover him for whenever he spills the eggs. So John Wall has been disappointing for my money, but he has time to turn it around. So, it's not like it's
Right.
the end of anything, unlike Carmelo Anthony.
Right. Jinno, how about you? Who's your disappointing player this year?
Of all the players that you mentioned, the one that jumps out to me, because the most is actually Zebo. And maybe it's because of the age, 34 years old. And he's been in the league for, 15, 14 years now. And but he's always been that guy. When you think of power forwards in the NBA, 2010, and that was Zebo through the years. And this year, he hasn't been producing, and I think part of it is also the drop of play from the entire Grizzlies organization, and I think that kind of affected him as well. But all the other guys that you mentioned, I always thought that those guys would start off a little bit slow and maybe pick it up later on in maybe the second half of the season. But I don't see Zebo picking it up in the second half of the season. I think this is it. I agree
with you. Yeah. Jinno, I thought you would say Kobe Bryant, man. But hey,
he's been playing better.
You didn't go there.
He's been playing better.
He's gone from the worst to the second worst.
You're not doing anything beforehand. It's impossible not to play better.
I know.
Hey, Mo, what about you?
I think Marcus was. Some people may have expected a drop off, just the style of game, or some people are really surprised. But if I were going to pick just kind of names that you didn't bring up, I thought DeMarcus Cousins is kind of an interesting scenario this year. He's doing the 25 and 10 that we expect, but not with the efficiency that you would think a DeMarcus Cousins would have. I thought he was going to be in superstar status by this season, and he's shooting 42% from the field. 42% for DeMarcus Cousins. That's atrocious, man. Yeah, it's amazing because you've got that body, you've got that skill set. I would say him, and then maybe to a lesser extent, not a superstar by any means, but Nerlens Noel. I think I brought him up maybe in some past episodes that I thought he ended the season last year so strong. I know that team was awful, but as an individual, kind of just seeing him not take the next step this season is a little bit kind of odd for me. I thought he was.
The only step he can take is off the plank, man. He's straight into the ocean.
Seriously.
That team's done.
There's
nowhere to go but down.
Yeah, I guess so. It's hard to kind of justify with a team that bad, but I just thought he would, take a step up in his game, and he's looked awful.
Well, as we wrap up here, I'll throw my name out. It's Goran Dragic for me. He started to look like he was going to show some chemistry with his teammates. He had another stinker tonight. He's just played well under expectation. So that's my pick, just to go a little different from what all you guys said. But I agree with every thing you guys said. So
you hate him because he's white? It sounds racist. You hate him because he's white.
No, I hate him. I hate him because he stinks this year. But
That's
so
right.
that wraps up some of our disappointing players. This segment was not disappointing, so thanks guys for your contributions.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we have our fourth quarter. This is the full court report. Back after this. Don't go away.
A Sports5.ph original web show.
My name is Dominic Uy, and this is my buddy Kevin Limhoco.
We are going to be testing products to their nth degree, to their limits.
Cars.
How many car makers are not equipped with power steering?
Gadgets.
You feel the value of that watch.
And everything in between.
I don't like to pamper myself except in a restaurant.
This is the web show for the modern man.
Oh, let's go!
Nth degree. Catch it exclusively on Sports5.ph.
Back on the full court report, it is fourth quarter on our show, and I am taking the ball and going to point guard this quarter. So I got 12 minutes. I'd like to bring up, before we get into any conversation, that the NBA this week has opened up the voting process for the All-Star game, and I know that Brad, Jinno, myself, maybe hopefully Chris will see you in February in Toronto, but it's always fun to kind of see where these guys fall, who makes the team. I know it's a little early because it's just the start of the voting process, but I wanted to throw a name out there and see what you guys thought about him possibly landing on the All-Star team this season. Now, it's always very difficult for a guy in the West that's not a superstar to make the team. And we've not seen Kawhi Leonard, for example, be an All-Star. But I think Rajon Rondo is worthy of a spot. I know these spots are extremely limited, but to be able to kind of not, credit the season that he's having. He does lead the league in assists. He leads the league in triple doubles. The slash line is 12, 7, 11 with 2 steals. So that's 12.7 boards, 11 assists, 2 steals. 45% from the field, which is kind of high for Rajon Rondo. I think that he's back. He's definitely, in my book, one of the top point guards this season. And I think we should credit that and recognize it. Yeah, what do you got?
Baseball, we know you're a big baseball man, and if this was the baseball all-star game, you can pick him on numbers alone. But the West backcourt is so
stacked, right?
It's so crowded that even the commissioner has moved Kobe Bryant to the forward spot just so the balloting can be fair to Kobe and to everybody else. Because there's no way Rondo's going to make this team ahead of Steph Curry, Westbrook, James Harden. Damian Lillard's probably ahead of him. And I'm sure there's a number of other guys that I'm not even mentioning. But I think Rondo's making a case, but I just don't know how convincing the case is.
You think Damian Lillard is more All-Star worthy than Rajon Rondo this season?
I would say yes to that. And you talked about numbers, Brad. Actually, if you look at more like advanced metrics, where you have efficiency rating, for one, is Rondo's not an efficient player, and he's always been that way. You have Isaiah Thomas, you have Reggie Jackson, you have Brandon Knight, who are more efficient players. You have a whole host of point guards, and point guard is supposed to be an efficient position. And I never liked the way Rondo would look to pass first. I know you want to see some, good distribution of passing and shooting. You don't always want to shoot first.
Right. But you can't be critical of Rondo because he plays a different style to everyone else. Like, I don't think that's a reason
to inefficient, though. He should shoot more. I mean, this guy could be holding a handgun. There's an intruder in his freaking house, and he still wouldn't shoot.
But that's shooting from a certain distance. So fine, he's not a great jump shooter, but I think from the paint, he's in with the 60 percentiles, or he's shooting 60%, or even kind of in that 60 to 70 range. In the paint.
So the question, Mo, is, what has he done that's convinced you that he deserves the All-Star spot?
Yeah, seriously.
What's he done? Like, what's been the single sort of standout thing where you say it's just the Rondo from Boston days and the return of the classic Rondo is reason enough to give him back his All-Star spot? Or is this a matter of...
Here's what I like about Rajon Rondo, okay? We brought it up. A flawed jump shot, fine. He's not a great shooter and all this. But I think his willingness to kind of achieve a certain level of, whether it be personal stature or it doesn't translate into wins over there in the Kings. I think this is a guy that is hungry to be able to be a dominant point guard again in this league, and he's to a certain capacity been able to do that again, leading the league in assists and leading the league in triple doubles at that size, that frame on that team is not an easy thing to do, and I just think that.
It welcoming him, like he's passing the eye test. It's one of those, visually he just looks as good as anyone else out there on the court. He's fulfilling his point guard duties, and it sounds like to me that you're saying when you sort of think about elite point guards in the West, Rondo's in that conversation, and thus Sacramento probably deserves an All-Star nominee, and he's it for this season because Boogie's been so bad.
Yeah, I would say that would be one kind of angle looking at it. I listen. A lot of it is the eye test. I watch the Kings a lot. I watch the Kings a lot because they play late. And when I see them and I see Rondo, I get this kind of renaissance of him coming back and him being able to put some what I think are elite stats. 4 triple doubles this season is nothing to kind of just prance over. And I see the willingness in Rondo to be able to rebound, for example, like other players don't at that stature that he has, that small size. I just want to credit him, make sure that his name is in the conversation of possibly being an all-star, and not continue to just think that he is a has-been, as we've talked about with other players. I think Rondo's elite. He can be elite again in the point guard position. Maybe not Westbrook, maybe not Steph, not these other guys, but to just completely write him off as we have, say, stars of the past or stars of the recent past is a little premature.
Is Mo going to say Rajon Rondo's a superstar?
But Carlisle, now Carlisle said recently that he's a max player. Obviously, that may be a little too generous, but he's going to get a fat contract next season.
And that's what he's playing for too. He's playing for that fat contract, especially after the season he had last year. And I enjoy watching him play. The highlight passes that he's shown this season has been fantastic. And his stats, even though the triple doubles aren't staggering triple doubles, they're still triple doubles. But I just don't think that him playing for the Kings will get him in the All-Star. If he was with the Celtics and producing this way, he might have had a shot, maybe even for the Knicks. But for the Kings, I just don't see it happening. I mean,
just because the West is too difficult to get an All-Star nod in that.
Plus the fact that the Kings aren't exactly as celebrated as the Knicks, or sorry, as the Celtics.
All right. Let's move on. I got a question. I got a question for you guys.
Triple doubles are the silliest stat, by the way. They're like the cycles in baseball. If there's a huge triple double, fine. But these triple doubles he makes, they're overrated, like the cycle in baseball. They're just a novelty.
No. The cycle. You can't compare the triple double with the cycle because the cycle is once.
I just did.
I know, and I'll tell you why it's a stupid example is because you can go through entire career without ever having a cycle. Rajon Rondo is averaging nearly a triple double every single night. Now, if you hit the cycle every night in baseball, then it's a different conversation. But you can have a crappy player hit for the cycle for any given moment.
Compared to it's a novelty. It's a darn novelty, man. It's just who cares? The 12.
I completely disagree. I think Russell Westbrook catapulted himself into superstar status just because of the triple doubles he was having last season.
30, 15, and 12. Way different than 12, 10, and 10. Way different.
I'm saying having the ability to average a triple double on a nightly basis or nearing that is a huge feat. And we've seen players in the past, whether it be your Oscar Robertsons or your this and your that, kind of just be heralded for their ability to put up numbers like that on every single night. Rondo's not a top 25 player. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying let's recognize that he is not as written off as we may say a Carmelo or a Chris Paul.
He's definitely not written off. The alien.
All right, here we go. I got to get to this question because it's an interesting question. All right, so I said I was going to talk. I promised a little Warrior talk, right? So here we go. Now that the 33 win streak is out of the table, there are a couple of streaks left that the Warriors can achieve here. Notably, the one getting all the fanfare is the 72-10 Chicago Bulls record, right? There's the 41-0 home record that Brad and I were talking about prior to the show. At any point, can it be argued that a record is more important than a championship? Not in a sense where you disregard the run for a championship, but let's say the Warriors are running away, which they currently are anyway, but let's say they're running away even more, say, come March, and it's time to possibly rest some of these guys to make a deep run and to go win a championship. Is it more important to give them that rest, or should they consider going after some of these elite records that have stood for a really long time? I wanted to ask you guys.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's only one record more important than winning a championship, and that's the all-time triple doubles record. So
sure.
I mean, that's
I'm with you there. Absolutely.
But I will say this. This is a team we spoke about before that might not need the rest. All the fourth quarter blowouts have contributed to that. I know when Steve Kerr comes back, that might be the case. I think they can go out and do both with this team. If we're talking about a hypothetical, the championship's always more important. However, this team can do both. Let them go for it. I would love to see that.
I think the point here is that you can get forgotten champions. Like, not everyone remembers every year and every team that wins. Like, sometimes you sort of have to scratch your head. But if they can get to 73 wins and not win the title, they'll still go down in history as having the greatest regular season record. 73 might be
as teams that choke. They'll be remembered as chokers. That's not a good thing.
Even if they go all the way to the finals and LeBron happens to have a magical night and takes them down in Game 7, really
chokers.
I think any player would rather have the championship than the record. I mean,
but the point here is not what the players want, but what actually is more significant historically. Because there's a champion crowned every year, but some of these records last 50 years. So which one is it? Is it a case of immortality can be granted two ways? Which version of immortality do you prefer?
But the immortality that you're talking about, though, is the type of immortality that labels them as chokers, as a team that couldn't get it done in the finals.
Listen, if they get knocked out of the first round, then they're chokers. But if they go all the way to the finals and lose in a 7-game series, is that choking automatically? I mean, is it
right? And they've already got a championship.
Yes.
So unless they're going to win 3 in a row,
it's choking.
I mean,
it's 100% choking. 100%. Wow. Now this team also has a back-to-back on the line too. So I mean that's a big thing as part of the legacy too. They're not just one-off. They won't be a forgotten champion. So they don't have that chance here. If they win the second row, they're not a forgotten champion, regardless.
Boy, I get kind of confused at how maybe again. Correct me if I'm wrong here. So if they don't win the championship, say they go to the finals and they lose, that's called choking because of their regular season prowess. Like
83 games. Yes, it's choking.
Wow, isn't that kind of
the 2000 Lakers? The 2000 Lakers won 67 games. Shaq won an MVP. If the Lakers lost to the Blazers in the Western Conference semifinals, they would have been deemed as chokers. Absolutely. There's a 67-win team. If you're a 73-win team and you don't do it, and Curry's the MVP, you're definitely chokers.
If you have that type of
But
record,
don't we see this in sports all the time, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, all the other ones you're throwing out there where teams are so dominant in the regular season, but come playoffs, you meet the hottest team storming into the playoffs, you could easily have a hard time winning them in a beating them in a series. I understand that there's a choker element in the playoffs if you get knocked out in the first round, but in the finals? That's a bold statement. But all right, I'll take it.
So what happens if they win 73? They lose in the NBA Finals or even the Western Conference Finals, and then they come back and win the championship next year. Like if they win 2 out of 3 years, they've been a record in between.
Someone better know how to do the Heimlich maneuver because they're chokers.
Because the NBA title is so easy to win. It's like,
no, it's not. That's the point, though. No. They have to win it to be champions and be regarded as great.
Right, but I think...
Yeah, but how can you be considered a choker when you're already there and you just don't pull it off in the finals? Like, it's difficult to win these things.
Well, to stay on top...
Warning hazard, and make it a choking.
But it also depends on if anybody's injured in the finals, though. I mean, if all of a sudden Curry's out... then they're not chokers. But if they're healthy in the finals, then they have to be considered. I mean, if they're going to get that record. We don't even know if they're going to get that record, though.
Fair enough. All right, we got to get out of here. Speaking of records, how about we do this for the overtime, if you guys don't mind? What are some of the more unbreakable records in the NBA? Or what's our favorite? What's the one record we think cannot be broken? Now, I know, Brad, you're really particular when it comes to these historical things because you don't consider anything prior to the merger as maybe a legitimate. What's your stand again on the merger? If it didn't happen post-merger?
It's Old Testament versus New Testament. They're just two completely different eras. And I think it's really difficult with the style of play, the rules, the size of the lane, the three-point line, like all the things that happened post-merger. And what we see today, it's like the modernization of basketball, but everything pre-merger, different travel, different diets, different everything to do with basketball, less 7-footers, less athleticism. It's just so hard to sort of, streaks today versus streaks from yesteryear.
We are probably going to get a post-merger record from you then, I'm assuming. But let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about it. What's our favorite, I guess, unbreakable record in the NBA? Don't go away. Back after this.
He has made viewers laugh with his funny antics and awesome style in comedy. He has also been in quite a few headlines himself. Well, funny man Arnel Ignacio loves good times too. Curious if he has funny secrets he'd like to spill? Then head on to www.tv5.com.ph/originals and watch Good Times with Mo. Thursday, 9 p.m. on Digital 5. Call us on our hotline, also on Viber and Skype.
Hey, it's overtime here on the Full Court Report. You guys know what we're talking about. We kind of teased it for you here at the end of the fourth there. What is our favorite unbreakable record? Or really doesn't even have to be favorite. Just which record do we think is just unbreakable when it comes to NBA talk? Now, again, we established that Brad says that the ABA or the pre-merger and post-merger are kind of Old Testament, New Testament. So, there's some crazy records that have been thrown out there in the 60s, thanks to Wilt. I don't know if that's the name that's going to be kind of popping up here in the overtime segment, but I just want to throw it out to you first, Brad. It kind of intrigues me then. What is your unbreakable record when we're talking about the NBA?
Well, my unbreakable record, I took the lighter angle with this one. I'm going with Rasheed Wallace's 41 technical fouls for the season.
Good one, dude. Good one.
I think that in the 2001 season, he got called for a technical, on average every second game. We're just never going to see anyone get called for that many Ts. The fines are different. The NBA landscape's a little different. Look, I'm sure Blake Griffin would love to get that many Ts because he complains enough to get that many Ts. But yeah, man, I'm going with Rasheed. I don't think anyone's going to get 41 technicals in the next 100 years. I just don't see it possible, unless of course Sheed's son plays in the NBA and he does it in honor of his father.
That's right. What about you, Jinno? What do you got? Unbreakable record in the NBA?
Well, with the decline of the centers and the big post presence in the NBA, I think everybody always talks about the scoring title or this all-time scoring leader in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but nobody really ever talks about on the other side, the defensive end. Hakeem Olajuwon's 3,830 blocks. I don't think that's going to be broken because there's no more centers that are going to be able to do that down the line. I mean, who's the active guy that you have here? Tim Duncan at 5th, and we all know that he's not going to reach that. Outside of that, there's nobody else in the vicinity where Duncan is. So I don't really see it happening.
I think the reason why it won't get touched is because the centers are going to be having to guard all the way out to the 3-point line. Hakeem could just hover around the key, swat, layup attempts and 2-pointers. But if you're taking centers out of the lane, there's no way they're going to block more shots.
Mm-hmm.
So just
to
the game,
piggyback
the
your number
style's
two, Jinno, to piggyback your stat, Mark Eaton, I believe, was 5.5 or 5.6 blocks a game for a season. I don't think that's going to be touched either.
Yeah, and
that's an amazing stat. Chris, what do you got?
So I'll do, what Brad wants to do. So I'll do pre-merger, and I'll go with not the one you expect on the court from Wilt Chamberlain, like 50 points a game or 23 K rebounds. I'm going to go with 20,000 women. That'll never be broken. So great job, Wilt. And then post NBA merger, do you guys remember this is my favorite record of all time. Do you remember the player Oliver Miller, big guy?
Oh yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
So
Suns,
he broke
right?
the single season record. He averaged, and Ray Felton, he tried to break this record, but Oliver Miller for a full season averaged 21 cheeseburgers a night for the whole season. Now Ray Felton got to 14 a night, wasn't even close. That's only 2/3 of Oliver Miller. Charles Barkley can't even get to the record. Oliver Miller has a record 21 a night for the entire season. Great job, Oliver.
I just feel like that's a future fat shaming kind of overtime segment that we can have, guys that were overweight and played in the NBA. Which ones are kind of I think Oliver Miller is going to be up there, but all right.
Really quickly, Scott Skiles and all those assists. I think it was 20 something in a game. All serious, I think that's going to be hard to break too. Yeah, whatever it was, I don't think it's going to be broken.
Sure.
So he did that in the game against Denver back in 1990, where the Magic scored 155 points, and Skiles had 30 assists.
Wow.
So to have one player dish it out that much, Rondo, come on, man. Step
Triple
up.
double, baby. Triple double.
That's right. Hey, listen, I'm going to throw out one of the more popular records, of course, is the 100 points a game, that 100 points in one game, which Wilt Chamberlain did in 62. Do you think that's as untouchable as maybe some people say? When you had a Kobe score 81 in a more of a modern time, you think that 100 is still something that can't be touched?
You desperately want Steph Curry to get there, and maybe he's the best chance. If he gets hot, if he hits 15,
it's going to be Chris Staffs. Yeah. Sorry.
If Greg Popovich gets his wish with a 5-point line, it'll be broken.
Yeah.
All right, fair. So you think the 100 is not going to be touched?
No. Kobe got 81 and he had crap players on his team and he took every shot. He's smushing Kwame. Of course, if he only can get to 81, then no one's going to get to 100.
Right, but say you get a big time score like a Westbrook or a Durant in a game that goes to 3 overtimes or 4 overtimes. You don't think that maybe 100 could be touched? The untouchable of the Wilt records is the 50 points per game. That's obviously that'll never happen again. But the 100 points a game, as crazy as that sounds, I think that's one that can be broken. Might not be in the next few years, but if you can get a guy in the right amount of overtimes and a crappy enough team, I think that 100 can be touched. So
if Rajon Rondo is passing to him, then he can get it.
Well, there you go. Here's one that I kind of read that I thought was rather interesting. Maybe is unbreakable. Michael Jordan had 866 consecutive games with 10 points or more. I don't know if. Boy, our staff here is. I feel like we're okay. Hold on. I'm not sure. Sorry, you guys don't hear this on thing, but our staff member just thought like the world was coming to an end here. We're being under attack. Time's up. Michael Jordan's 866 of 10 points or more consecutive games. LeBron, I think, is in the kind of mid 600s right now. So he's going to have to be able to do that for 3 years in a row and not get hurt to be able to pull that off. So that might be a little bit of an untouchable record.
Will had 65 straight games with 30 or more. Now that's impressive.
Oh, man. Wild. All right. That's it for the full court report. We will be back on Wednesday night in the U.S., Thursday morning for Asia and Australia.
Are you before that, Mo? Because the tech team might cut you off.
Yeah, no, I'm still kind of I'm traumatized. Again, our listeners don't hear this, but when you're in the newscast, you got that earpiece in there. We got that earpiece here, and our George here is one of the guys in the staff. He's like, "Time's up." It's like when did the devil come into the show? All All right, but anyway, yeah, before we say goodbye, let's kind of throw it around the room here and give a little one-liner to wrap up tonight's episode. Jinno, you're in Manila. You better hurry up for the guys in studio. They're going to kill you. What do you got?
It's Star Wars week.
That's right.
You know, Star Wars week, episode 7 coming out. But you know, in all seriousness, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Jinno Rufino, JINNORUFINO.
Sounds good. Chris, New York, what's up, buddy?
As always, at Not Bill Walton, and if you want to go on my feed and see me pull a triple-double off, I'll put up one insult, one pop culture reference, and one fart joke. Always, man. Triple-doubles all day. Never overrated.
Sounds good. Brad in Australia.
You can follow me at Backpack Baller on Twitter. I try to throw out as many little remarks as I can. Throw me questions. I'll do my best to respond, and keep all the comments coming, man. We really appreciate the support.
That's right. I am at DJ Mo Twister on Twitter as well as Instagram. And please, follow at Full Court Report on Twitter. I've seen a lot of interaction these past couple week or two already on that Twitter account. It's starting to get really entertaining there. So do check us out on our show Twitter, and we'd appreciate that very much. So we'll see you guys again on Wednesday. Have a great NBA week in the meantime, and we'll catch you then. This has been the Full Court Report. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.